How you doing, guys? Today I am continuing the repower of my 1965 Rugg carpet cut. This unit originally came with a 4 horsepower aluminum block L-head Briggs & Stratton engine. Since resurrecting it and rebuilding the 4 horsepower engine last year, I have now swapped a 5 horsepower aluminum block L-head Briggs & Stratton engine, but we also have now electric start. What I need to do today is try to figure out where I want to put the battery. Now, I was initially thinking I was going to put the battery up here in the front, but this engine, or even the 4 horsepower engine, it runs really hot. And with the hood right here, the underhood temperatures are pretty warm right in this area. So I really didn't want to put the battery, even if I put a heat shield around it, I just didn't want to put the battery in the front. When we look over the back, there's really not any room back here either. I mean, the transmission with the PTO is right there. And then over on this side, I do have this is the blade engagement. Okay, that's what that is. And I have taken this out for a little quick preliminary run up and down the street. Everything seems to work as it did. The blade engages, it goes through the gears, it's all set there. And I'll show you a ride later on. But for the battery, what I came up with is I got this little battery off of Amazon for, I think I paid 28 bucks for it. It's just a Model T, it's a YTZ7S, 12 volts, and I guess that's 6 amps. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not a battery guy. All I know is they had the comparable one at Walmart for $90, and I was like, yeah, not doing that. And I've already tested it. I put the leads on, and I jumped the starter, and the engine started right up. So I know this battery has plenty of horsepower to do what we need to do, or enough mojo and jam to take care of what we're looking to do. And approximately that's where I'm going to put it. I'm going to make a battery tray today. I'm actually going to move the battery over closer to the transmission so it won't hang off quite as much. Let's see if it'll stick put. Here, we'll just lean it up. So essentially, it's going to be right in that area. Now, this is the negative post. I'm going to go negative battery cable to the bolt that holds the axle on. I've already tested that. We have continuity to the block, so that should be a good ground. We have the positive side on that. So I'm going to run the wire cable this direction. The actual layout of the wiring I still have to work out, but the battery's the one I'm going to use. And my brother was cool enough to let me have this old Simplicity push switch. Came off a Simplicity tractor, I believe. It's a little bit physically bigger than I wanted. I thought these things were a little bit smaller. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but my first thought was to have it right underneath the throttle. So that way you can set the choke, hit the button, and the engine will start up. But we're a long ways away from that. I'm going to go ahead, take some measurements of the base, or the dimensions of the base of the battery. I do have a piece of steel laying there over on the floor. I'm going to go ahead and get a reasonable piece of steel together for the tray. I went ahead and just made a couple quick patterns of the style tray that I just want to make real quick. I opted to go to the bigger one. It's going to be a little tight in there. I'm going to have to be a little careful when I do the bending. But in general, as you can see, I just went ahead and took my die grinder and cut. You can see there's a lot of slag. I just went ahead and took my die grinder and cut a piece of sheet steel out. I went ahead and dressed and filed the ends, this end of the sheet metal. This side's good, this side's good. I gotta do this tab, and then this length with the file. Just get it all nice and straight and smooth. I'll go ahead and hit it with a cookie wheel and then with a DA sander just to get it all nice and clean. And then I'll probably have to modify my little pieces of aluminum, but I'll bend the tabs up in the vise. I got the first couple bends completed. I did have to hit it up. I had to heat it up with the torch in order to bend it in my vise nice and straight. So you can see I got just enough reveal on either side of the battery so it's not right up against the edges. I'm going to do the same, give a little bit of a reveal or a little bit of space between the battery and the side. I do need to take the die grinder and kind of grind away this little piece of, this little thickness of steel off the edges here, so that way when I bend this up, it'll bend on the inside or inside these two flaps. Overall, I'm super happy with the way it looks. I mean, those are fairly straight or straight enough. So I'm going to go ahead, grind these little edges down so that way they'll clear the sides that I have bent. I'll bend them up, get them in place. And then from there, I'll start to figure out where am I going to put the hole down and actually what am I going to use to mount this to the tractor with. With the sides bent into position, I went ahead and quickly welded a couple pieces of band iron to the bottom of the tray. The next thing I did is I drilled it number 7, and then I took my 1/4 tap and went ahead and threaded or tapped this piece of band iron. And the reason for that is I'm going to use this piece of threaded rod. Obviously this is too long. I just wanted to put it right there so I can go ahead and spot weld that in place. I'll grind this down nice and smooth so nothing will hit the battery. And that's going to be the stud, in theory, that will tie the battery tray down to the frame rail, because I'll put a strap on the bottom of the frame rail to hold it. But in general, that's how the battery looks. I think it looks like a Rugg part, you know, because I made it out of sheet metal, and then as you can tell, it lines up real nice with the engine plate. The battery fits in it real good. So I'm going to go ahead right now, cut those pieces of threaded rod to length and spot weld them into place. I got the tray preliminarily mounted. I did, because I'm running out of time for today, I just wanted to get it to see if it would work. I just have a piece of aluminum that I just cut real quick. I am going to swap that out with a piece of steel, so that way it's a little bit solid. But I mean, it is not going anywhere. The threaded rod is in place. The battery looks great. It fits perfectly with the engine plate. When we look at it from this direction, I mean, it almost looks like a factory Rugg piece. And if I take the battery out real quick, that you can see right where I welded those threaded rods into place. So let me just put this over here real quick, put that on the workbench, the battery that is, and there you go. And that's the general design of the battery tray, and it is super solid. Once I swap this for a piece of steel, it'll be absolutely perfect. Next up, I'm going to figure out how I got to make a strap, a battery strap. That's next. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, might just weld a couple nuts onto the side of this and make a J hook for it. I don't know yet. Or I might put a piece of threaded rod. I still haven't figured that out yet, but right now I think that it's a good time to take a break. I ran over to Tractor Supply and got these 1024 couplers. I just went ahead and welded them onto the bottom of the tray, so when you look at it, you won't even see the welds. These little pieces of threaded rod are temporary, just so I can make the top strap. I had this piece of steel down in my scrap bin, so what I did was I measured from the center of the hole to the center of the hole, and using these temporary pieces of threaded rod, that's how I got the length. So I cut the center section out. I'm going to go ahead and weld this back together, and that's going to be my battery strap. So let me get going on that, and then we can see sort of what the rough finished product is going to look like. Okay, all the pieces to the battery tray are put together. I just gave them a quick sandblast and obviously a little etch primer. I had to put a little filler here because there's some pitting in the metal, and I just didn't want to look at it. One of the other things I've done is I'm starting to make the bracket for the starter switch. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it right where the throttle is. This piece here that I have is going to actually be on the back side, but essentially I drilled a hole so it'll be nice and even with the edge of the stand. There's these little pieces right here. That's the reason for the notches, so that way the throttle will clear this piece, because this is going to be like in this position. From there, the switch is going to be on the lower section. I need to weld a 90-degree piece so that way it'll mate up with the screw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mimic this angle right here, because I want the switch to be like this on the stand. So that way it kind of looks like it's supposed to be there. It's not really added on. And with it being behind the stand, you won't see the wires or any of the bolts. And then the hood is like right here. So that'll cover most of it. So you won't even see this really. In order to make these angled cuts, like this triangle style cut, I just have a piece of bar stock in my vise. I'm just going to take a hacksaw and cut right on top of the aluminum pieces here, and then I'll end up with a nice little piece of triangle. I already made one cut. It's right here. You can see it right there. So once I get done with the second cut, I'll show you how this is all going to fit together. This is what I meant by using the aluminum as a guide or a fence to make an angled cut in a piece of straight bar stock. Sometimes if you just have the bar stock sticking out straight and then you try to actually cut at an angle, that can be pretty difficult. So this is what I do. I just make my line it up with the top of a piece of aluminum because that's soft, and then I just cut right along it. Then I get a nice straight angled cut. So after a little bit of cutting and welding and some clear coat, this is the bracket that I built or made for the starter switch. And essentially what it's going to do, it's going to go on the inside right here. I'm actually going to use the throttle bolt to hold it in place. And this little tang will stick out where I can bolt the switch to. And also, because it's leaning against the hood stand, when I push the switch, it shouldn't flex. It should be just fine. I did make these little notches right here, let's see, right there, and those correspond with the little legs that stick out to support the throttle. So I'll put this on, then I'll put the throttle on, all on the inside, run the bolt through, tighten it down, and there we go. And then the switch will bolt to this with a quarter 20 bolt. Now I'm only using one side of the switch bolt, but because this is up against the hood stand, and I designed this so this part of the switch actually sits up against that, you know, right up against this. Once this is all bolted down, this switch will be more than stable. The wires will come right off just like that. So I'm going to go ahead. I found a longer quarter 20 bolt so I can bolt all this together. I'm going to go ahead, get that all together, get the switch bolted up, and then we'll take a look at the battery tray installed. Just to give a little better visual of what I've done here, that little piece, that looks pretty clean to me. And what will happen is the switch will get bolted in right there. And that's essentially what we'll see. I might even put a little dummy bolt in this hole just so it looks like it's bolted in two places. But essentially, there it is. All right, let me go ahead and get this all bolted up nice and tight. And what else? Oh, battery tray. Okay, I got the basic parts added to the rider in order to function the electric start. The push button start switch is in place. Everything looks really good. I'm real happy on how that turned out. I did add just a fictitious bolt over here just to fill the hole in. It's not attached to anything. It's actually attached to this bolt. And if we just push the switch, everything is fine. I can even do it this way, you know, brace myself here and push the thumb. The throttle's right here, choke, everything's is right there. So you can actually do it all with one hand. Set the choke, hit the start button, knock it off choke. So I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. Actually, I'm really happy with the way it came out. It looks really good. The battery tray is in place. It's all bolted down, ready to go. I did contact cement a little bit of rubber at the bottom of it, so the battery actually sits on the rubber and not just straight on the flat steel. But I think, and then I hit it with the same paint color that I used for the fender. I hit that with the green paint, so it kind of blends in. Wow, this is coming out a lot better than I thought. And it not that it's going to look stock original, but I think it'll have the appearance that, you know, maybe Rugg had done it this way in the past. You know what I mean? So the plan is for the next video to do the wiring, and we're going to do the wiring a little bit, little interesting, or at least I'm going to try to hide the wiring as much as possible. Going to come off the starter switch. I'm going to use this factory hole to stick the wires through. I'm going to run it through the frame rail and then have the wiring come out the back of the frame rail and exit somewhere over here. So that way when I have the battery, I can hide my inline fuses. I think I'm going to go underneath the transmission, come across, and then one wire will hit the rectifier and one wire will hit the starting post, or the positive lead off the post of the starter. That's the plan, but that's in for another video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe it gives you some ideas or some thoughts on how to do maybe a conversion on your tractor, or just, you know, thinking through the project to try to make it look as clean as possible, even though it's a total add-on. All right, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below, and as always, you have a great day.